Our honeymoon flight to Tokyo was violently derailed, not by turbulence but by a passenger whose shocking obsession with my wife's cashmere blanket ignited a mid-air crisis. The low hum of the Boeing 787's engines was supposed to be the soundtrack to our dream. My wife Chloe and I had waited 2 long years for this honeymoon. 2 years of saving, planning, and navigating a world that had gone sideways. Now, we were finally on our way, buckled into our seats for a 14-hour flight from London to Tokyo. The lights in the cabin had been dimmed, and the soft blue glow cast a peaceful spell over most of the passengers. Most of them, but not the woman in the seat directly across the aisle from Chloe. I'd noticed her during boarding. She was one of those. She wore an expensive-looking cream-colored tracksuit that seemed designed more for showing off than for comfort, and her face was set in a permanent scowl of disapproval. She'd made a fuss about the size of the overhead bin, complained that someone's backpack was touching her carry-on, and let out an exaggerated theatrical sigh when the flight attendant politely asked her to take her seat so we could depart. I mentally nicknamed her the Countess of Coach. Chloe, on the other hand, is the opposite of confrontational. Flying makes her anxious, and long-haul flights are a special kind of trial for her. To cope, she has her ritual, a noise-canceling headset, a calming playlist, and her blanket. It wasn't one of the flimsy, static-charged things the airline provides. This was her blanket, a beautiful, incredibly soft grey cashmere throw that I had bought her as a wedding gift. It was her comfort object, her little piece of home she could take anywhere. As soon as we reached cruising altitude, the ritual began. Headset on, she snuggled down into her seat, pulled the cashmere blanket up to her chin, and within 20 minutes she was asleep, a small, peaceful smile on her face. I felt a wave of love and relief wash over me. The hard part was over. Now we could just relax and wake up in a new world. I put on a movie, settling in for the long journey. About an hour in, I felt eyes on me. I glanced across the aisle. The Countess was staring. Not at me, but at Chloe, specifically at the blanket. Her scowl had deepened, her lips pressed into a thin, disapproving line. I tried to ignore it, telling myself she was just bored. A few minutes later, a flight attendant came down the aisle with the drinks cart. The Countess flagged her down with an impatient snap of her fingers. "I'm cold," she announced, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I need a blanket." The flight attendant, a calm, professional woman in her late 40s, gave her a polite smile. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. We've already distributed all the blankets we have for this cabin. It's a very full flight." The Countess huffed. "Well, that's just unacceptable. What am I supposed to do? Freeze? I can offer you a hot tea, perhaps?" the flight attendant suggested, her smile not wavering. "I don't want tea. I want a blanket," she snapped, before dismissing the attendant with a wave of her hand. The flight attendant, a true pro, just nodded and moved on. The Countess's gaze then locked back onto Chloe. It was a predator's gaze, calculating and filled with a sense of righteous indignation. My internal alarms started blaring. I subtly shifted in my seat, trying to create a bit more of a physical barrier, a silent back-off message. She didn't seem to get it. She leaned into the aisle, her voice a loud, piercing whisper. "Excuse me, excuse me." I leaned forward. "Can I help you?" I asked, keeping my own voice low. She gestured with her chin towards my sleeping wife. "She has a blanket." "Yes," I said slowly, not understanding what she was getting at. "She does." "Well, I need it," she stated, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "The airline didn't give me one." "She can share." I was stunned. I actually blinked a few times, trying to process the sheer audacity. "I'm sorry, but no," I said firmly. "That's her personal blanket. She brought it from home." This information seemed to enrage her rather than deter her. "I don't care where she got it. It's not fair. Some people have everything, and others are left to shiver." Her voice was rising in volume, and a couple of nearby passengers shifted uncomfortably. Chloe stirred in her sleep, her brow furrowing slightly. I put a gentle hand on her arm, trying to soothe her without waking her up. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice, and the answer is no. The blanket is not available." The Countess's eyes narrowed into slits. "We'll see about that," she muttered. She unbuckled her seatbelt. My heart started pounding. There's a certain kind of dread you feel when you realize you're trapped in a metal tube at 35,000 feet with someone who is completely unhinged. She stood up, took one step into the aisle, and before I could even react, she leaned over my wife's sleeping form. Her perfectly manicured hand shot out like a viper, grabbing a fistful of the soft gray cashmere. "Hey!" I yelled, my voice louder than I intended. Chloe's eyes flew open with a startled gasp as she felt the blanket being yanked away from her. The Countess pulled hard, trying to wrench it free. Instinct took over. I lunged forward, grabbing the other end of the blanket. We were in a ridiculous, high-altitude tug-of-war over my wife's wedding present. "Let go!" the woman screeched, her face contorting with rage. "It's mine now!" "Get your hands off my wife's property," I shot back, holding tight. Suddenly, a calm but incredibly firm voice cut through the chaos like a knife. "Ma'am." We both froze. Standing right there, her expression unreadable but her eyes radiating pure, unadulterated authority, was the senior flight attendant. "Let go of the blanket." "Now." The Countess of Coach stared at the flight attendant, her hand still clamped onto the cashmere. For a moment I thought she was actually going to try and fight a uniformed crew member. A tiny, insane part of my brain was almost impressed by the sheer, unadulterated audacity. But the flight attendant, Sarah, didn't even blink. Her gaze was like steel. "Ma'am," she repeated, her voice dropping an octave, losing all its previous warmth. "You have 2 seconds to release that passenger's personal property. Return to your seat and buckle your seatbelt. If you fail to do so, I will consider it a direct violation of crew instruction and a Level 2 in-flight incident. Do you understand what that means?" The woman's face paled slightly. The threat, cloaked in professional jargon, was clearly more effective than my own shouting had been. Her fingers uncurled, and she let go of the blanket as if it had suddenly become red hot. With a final venomous glare at me, she slumped back into her seat and slammed the seatbelt buckle into place with a loud, aggressive click. I immediately turned my full attention to Chloe. She was trembling, her face pale and her eyes wide with the familiar panic I knew so well. Her peaceful sleep had been shattered, replaced by the jarring reality of a stranger physically accosting her. I pulled the blanket up around her shoulders, tucking it in tightly. "It's okay, honey. I'm right here. It's over," I whispered, wrapping my arm around her. She leaned into me, burying her face in my shoulder. Sarah, the flight attendant, knelt in the aisle beside us. "Are you both all right?" she asked, her voice soft and full of genuine concern. "I am so incredibly sorry. That should never have happened." "We're okay," I said, though my heart was still hammering against my ribs. "Thank you for stepping in." "It's my job to ensure every passenger feels safe," she said, before rising to her full height and turning to face the Countess. Her entire demeanor shifted back to one of icy authority. "Ma'am," she said, addressing the woman across the aisle, "your behavior was completely unacceptable. You have harassed another passenger and created a disturbance. This is your one and only warning. If you speak to these passengers again, if you leave your seat without permission, or if you cause any further disruption for the remainder of this 14-hour flight, you will be considered a threat to the safety and security of this cabin. The captain will be notified, and we will have you met by law enforcement upon our arrival in Tokyo. Is that clear?" The Countess just folded her arms and stared straight ahead, a furious red blush creeping up her neck. She didn't respond, but the message had clearly been received. Sarah gave a curt nod, shot me a quick, reassuring look, and then continued down the aisle. For the next hour, an uneasy truce settled over our section of the plane. I couldn't relax. I tried watching my movie, but my eyes kept darting across the aisle. The Countess wasn't sleeping. She was just sitting there, rigid with anger, stewing in her own toxic indignation. Chloe tried to close her eyes, but I could tell she was just pretending, too rattled to find her way back to sleep. Then I saw it. The telltale glow of a phone screen. The Countess was holding her phone up, angled directly at Chloe and me. The little red dot in the corner of the screen confirmed my fear. She was recording. She began to speak, her voice a loud, performative whisper designed to be overheard. "Hi, everyone. I'm live on the flight from hell," she stage whispered into her phone. I just want you all to see the kind of people this airline lets on board. This man here," she tilted the phone towards me, "is a complete psycho. He screamed at me, a single woman traveling alone, just because I was cold. He's been threatening me for the last hour." My blood turned to ice. This was a whole new level of harassment. She was creating a public record of lies, painting me as an aggressor. I felt a dozen pairs of eyes on us. Before I could even decide how to respond, Sarah was on her way back, her expression grim. The Countess saw her coming and seized the opportunity for more drama. "Oh, look, here comes the flight attendant. She's in on it with them. They're all ganging up on me. I've never felt so unsafe in my life." "Ma'am, put the phone away," Sarah commanded, her patience clearly gone. "Recording other passengers without their consent is strictly prohibited." The Countess gave a sickeningly sweet smile to her phone's camera. "They're trying to silence me because they know I'm telling the truth." Then her eyes locked onto mine. A cruel, triumphant light flickered within them as she leaned closer to her phone's microphone, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial, poison-laced tone. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they were smuggling something. I saw him stuffing things into his bag during boarding. He's so agitated. I think he's on drugs. He probably forced his poor wife to carry them for him. That was it. The line had not just been crossed, it had been obliterated, accusing us of smuggling drugs on our honeymoon flight, broadcasting it to her online audience. It was a vile, calculated act of revenge designed to cause maximum damage. My anger, which had been simmering, boiled over into a cold, clear focus. I saw Chloe's face, etched with a mixture of fear and disbelief. I had to end this. I unbuckled my seatbelt and stood up, mirroring the Countess's earlier aggression, but with none of her hysterics. I looked directly at Sarah, the flight attendant, who was now standing firmly between our seats and the Countess's. "Sarah," I said, my voice steady and loud enough for everyone around us to hear, "this passenger has now falsely accused my wife and me of smuggling illegal narcotics. She has done so publicly, while recording us without our consent, and after being warned by you to cease all contact. This has moved beyond simple harassment. I am now formally requesting that you involve the captain, and that we press charges for slander and harassment upon landing." The effect was instantaneous. A ripple of gasps went through the nearby seats. The Countess's smug expression faltered, her eyes widening in genuine shock. I don't think she ever imagined her little power trip would have real-world consequences. Her phone, still broadcasting live, seemed to tremble in her hand. Sarah didn't hesitate. She gave me a firm nod. "Understood, sir. Please return to your seat." She then turned to the Countess, her voice leaving no room for argument. "Hand me the phone." "You can't do that. It's my property," the Countess shrieked, clutching the device to her chest. "You are on a private aircraft under the authority of the captain. You are using that device to harass passengers and make false, dangerous accusations. This is now a security issue. Give me the phone, or I will have the flight marshal who is sitting 3 rows behind you confiscate it. It will then be turned over to the Japanese authorities as evidence." The mention of a flight marshal on board seemed to suck all the air out of the Countess. Her fight was gone. Defeated, she handed the phone over to Sarah, who immediately ended the live stream and powered it down. Sarah then spoke into her own headset, her voice low and professional, before turning back to the Countess one last time. "For the safety and comfort of everyone on this flight, you are being relocated. Collect your personal belongings. Now." Another crew member appeared and escorted a now silent, ashen-faced Countess to an empty seat at the very back of the plane, right next to the lavatories. It was a walk of shame, and she felt the weight of every single passenger's stare. Once she was gone, Sarah came back to us. "On behalf of the entire airline, I am deeply sorry for your experience," she said, her sincerity palpable. "We've arranged to move you both. There are 2 empty seats in premium economy. It's the least we can do." She led us through the curtain into a quieter cabin with wider seats and more legroom. It felt like walking into another world. As we settled in, she brought us glasses of champagne and a small plate of gourmet chocolates. "We've already comped your tickets," she added quietly, "and the captain has been fully briefed. He agrees with your decision and will ensure the authorities are waiting. Her details and the recording from her phone will be passed on." The relief was overwhelming. Chloe finally relaxed, the tension melting from her shoulders. She took a sip of champagne and managed a small, genuine smile. "Thank you," she said to Sarah. "You handled that perfectly." "Just doing my job," Sarah replied with a warm smile. "Now please, enjoy the rest of your flight, and congratulations on your marriage." The remaining 10 hours passed in peaceful, luxurious bliss. Chloe slept soundly, wrapped in her cashmere blanket, a symbol not of anxiety, but of our victory. When we landed at Narita International Airport, we saw it unfold from our window. As the Countess of Koch was escorted off the plane, two polite but firm-looking Japanese police officers were waiting for her on the jet bridge. Her face, a mask of pure shock and indignation, was the last we ever saw of her. We stepped off the plane into the bright, clean air of Japan, hand in hand, leaving the drama behind us. Our honeymoon had started with an unexpected battle at 35,000 feet, but we had faced it together, and as we walked towards our new adventure, I knew that just like the cashmere blanket I had gifted my wife, our marriage was something strong, comforting, and worth fighting for.